Welcome back. It's Krista Living Sober, and we have Lynn as the guest today, and she's also known as the Sober Grandma Road Trip on Instagram. Welcome,
Hi,
Lynn.
Krista. Thank you. Thank you. I'm really happy to be here.
Well, it's an honor. Would you like to start off by telling the audience and listeners a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Yeah. Like I like to say, I'm a 68-year-old church-going, road-tripping, tatted up, sober grandma, and just loving life.
That's amazing. I love that. And how long have you been sober now?
It'll be 10 months on Thursday.
Yay, congrats.
So,
That's
yeah, I
awesome.
know.
Yeah, almost a year. It's good in there. That's
It's hard to
exciting.
believe. It really
Yeah.
is.
And how do you feel today?
I feel incredible. A year
Mhm.
ago, I was just so lost and miserable. And looking back 10 months, I can't believe that was me. And I can't
Yeah.
believe how my life has changed and all the wonderful, joyous opportunities that keep presenting themselves. That a year ago, I never would have believed it.
Yeah. So many blessings in sobriety for sure.
So many. And who
Yeah.
knew? I mean,
Right.
at the time just seemed like so terrible. And it was.
Yeah.
Um, but, it can change. It can change just like that as long as you are willing to change and as long as you are willing to see that you need to change. That's a big,
Yeah.
huge piece of it.
Yeah, definitely admitting that we have a problem and that we're powerless and that some part of our life becomes unmanageable for sure. We have to fully be honest and open with ourselves to admit that we need help, and it's not always easy, but once you
100%
once
no.
you once you ask for that help, and you receive it, you realize how many people are there to help you. You realize that you're not alone in the recovery journey. So
Absolutely.
yeah. So would you like to start off by telling us a little bit about your journey?
Sure. Let's start with I mentioned that I was in a place that was just dark and miserable and had been stuck in that place for a good while. And then what happened is all of a sudden on Monday, May 24th, 2021, I got a text from my oldest daughter. And the text
Mm-hmm.
basically said, Mom, I'm really concerned about your drinking. She said, on FaceTime last night, you were slurring, you were repeating yourself, you weren't making any sense to the point where her 7-year-old son, our only grandson, when they got off the phone, he's like, what is wrong with grandma? And I was just like, oh, gut punch. I mean, I was devastated. It hurt me to my soul. And that was it. That's what I needed. That was the kick in the butt that I needed to take a look at it and say, okay, you've known in your heart for a long, long time that there's a problem. Now you know that you've got to do something about it. So that was really the start of my journey. So what happened was that was a Monday, and we were leaving on Saturday for the trip of a lifetime that we had been planning for 2 years to take off on our travel trailer and to see the U.S. And so we had a plan for 10 weeks, 10,000 miles, a lot of national parks, 30 states. And I thought, what a crappy time to give up drinking, right? I
Yeah.
mean, this is just stupid.
Right.
But as it turns out, it was brilliant because getting out of my routine and having something to look forward to every day, something new and different and exciting, it turned out to be just fantastic. Now, I know that's not something that everyone can do, but in my life, that's how it worked out. And it was just amazing. But what it also meant is because my first thought is, oh, I need to get treatment or therapy or something. And so I went online and started searching, like all of us do, about what to do. And I found on Amazon this book called The Alcohol Experiment by Annie Grace. And that led me to what ultimately, and I'll talk a lot about it, has been the secret sauce for me. So I ordered the book, and it came in just before we left. I didn't start it right off because we were visiting family, but as we were on the road more and more, I started it. And once I started it, I was very diligent about every day. It's set up so that it gives you a short lesson every day, and then it has journal prompts so you can reflect back how that lesson applied in your life, what resonated, what spoke to you. That was incredible. So that became a daily practice. Every day when we stopped for the day and my husband was setting up the travel trailer, I would read my lesson for the day. I do my journaling. It took a half hour, not a long time every day, but it was every day.
Mm-hmm.
And that made such a difference. In the alcohol experiment, you learn so much about the properties of alcohol itself. The chemistry and the biophysiology and all the things that it's doing in your body. And the hook for me was in the very first paragraph, it's not your fault. And I'm like, it's not my fault. I'm pretty sure it is, but it's like, no, and we're going to explain why. However, it is your responsibility. And so that's where the daily practice comes in, and other things that you can incorporate in your life. And at this point, I want to give a shout out to David Clemon and Recovery Nuggets podcast, because I covered the early stages in my sobriety in my conversation with David. So not to, repeat everything there. I'll just kind of point people in that direction. I'll go over here
and I can tag him too. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, perfect. And so I'd like to share some of the things that I didn't share there and what's happened as I've moved forward in my journey. The other thing that I'll share about that is I discovered podcasts. I mean, I knew they were out there, but I just didn't really ever pay any attention. But again, got a lot of time in the car on the road. And so I did a search for sober and found just tons of sober podcasts. And I, picked a few to check out. And I found one in particular that resonated with me. And I just binged on that. I couldn't get enough. And it was wonderful because that is what really allowed me to feel that I'm not broken. I'm not morally defective. I'm not a terrible person. I had just gotten stuck in alcohol addiction. The alcohol had taken over. It was in control. I wasn't in control. And in the process, I also found the sober community and Instagram and became very involved in that. And that's where the Sober Grandma road trip handle came in. The next stage that I'd like to touch on is, my kids kind of got involved after I got the text from my daughter. I've got 4 adult kids, and I told them, okay, yes, I will seek treatment or therapy or whatever, but we're hitting the road right now, and it's just not the most convenient time to take that on. Yes, you can do it online. Yes, we could have done it while we were traveling, but I didn't. But when I got home, as soon as I got home, like I mentioned, I'm a church-going grandma, so I started going back to church. And we had a new minister at that time. It had changed while we were gone. And I hadn't met Pastor Lisa yet. And at the end of her sermons were always just so heartfelt and just really reached and touched me. And she always ended her sermon or the service with, if you ever would like to talk to me, I'm always available, and you're never a bother. And that you're never a bother is like, okay, this is the person I need to talk to. So I made an appointment, and we'd never met before. So I'm sure Pastor Lisa was thinking this appointment was, I'm going to meet a new person and get to know them. And I got there, and she was just so warm and welcoming, and I felt so safe. And it was like the floodgates opened up. It was just like, bleh, and I let it all out. Just all the stuff that I wouldn't share with anybody else, all the dirty, shameful secrets. And she was just wonderful, it's just like, okay. And just accepted it, and it was what I needed. It
Like
opened my
freeing.
heart. It was so freeing.
Freeing,
Yes,
yeah, because like when
yes,
we hold all that in, like trapped down inside, it eats away at us.
yes.
When we finally let that out, it's just like, wow, I was holding on to a lot, and I didn't realize that, but now I can begin to heal. Yeah.
Absolutely. That's absolutely what happened. Thank you. You just
Hmm.
encapsulated it right there. And it also happened that her sermon series in August, and I'll give a shout out for this too. It's
Hmm.
Coronado Community United Methodist Church. On their website, they have all their sermons there. So it's the August series of sermons. They were on emotions. And emotions are a gift from God. Emotions are sent to us, that even the ones we consider bad are all gifts from God. And they were sent to us as indicators. They're indicators of this is something that you need to stop and take a look at. This is something you need. Invite that emotion to the table, as Pastor Lisa put it. Invite that emotion to the table, have a seat, and welcome them in, and then open yourself to what they're trying to tell you. And so that was, yeah, yes, that was wonderful. Pastor Lisa, let's see. We only met 3 times because, as she said, she's not a licensed therapist. She's not trained for long-term therapy. She's there for counseling and be like Vanna White and point
Yeah.
people, to the
Yeah.
right direction, what the next
Hmm.
step. But she did teach me some really good things. And the one I want to share is about breath prayers.
Hmm.
And breath prayers are something I'd never heard about before. I was familiar with deep breathing practices and some meditation. And this is really just kind of a combination of the two.
Hmm.
And the idea is, again, it's just something small that you can incorporate in your day. And what you do is on your inhale, you also include a little meditation about, and it could be anything, but it could be, say, God is good. And then you inhale, you pause, you reflect a little bit on that, and then on your exhale, I give God praise to God for all my blessings, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so, isn't
Hmm.
that wonderful? And it's so easy.
Yeah.
Anybody can do it. I mean, a breath prayer honestly can be as simple as breathe in the good, exhale the bad.
Hmm.
I mean, it's
Yeah,
just
it's a sort of meditation with
it is.
affirmation, which is so powerful. Yeah, I learned that in my yoga training that times they used to use mantras and
Mhm.
part of their meditation. So it's very powerful with healing the body and the mind.
It really is. And for
Yeah,
me, I mean, I think a lot of us think what's got to be some big, hairy deal.
right.
Meditation has to be, you've got to do it just perfect. And
No.
this broke it down to where it was very approachable for me. It's like,
Hmm.
okay, I can do that. And so I started doing that on a day, incorporated that into my practices on a daily basis. And about the same time is when I discovered the I Am Sober app. And I like that a lot because it's at its most elementary, it's a day counter. And some people find that useful in sobriety and some don't. It was very helpful to me. And it would give you can set it up to send you notifications. So it would send you a notification in the morning to make a pledge. And then it would send you a notification in the evening to review your day.
Okay,
And
so
so
it kept you accountable. Right.
accountable,
Yeah.
exactly. And sharing that with Pastor Lisa, she says that's a spiritual
Yeah.
practice right there. And again, we make it into it has to be something just really super special or no, it's just
Yeah.
something that speaks to you that becomes a part of your daily life.
Hmm.
And so the I Am Sober app, I would
Cool.
recommend that to the people who are interested. About the same time, discovered the I Am app. And that is an affirmation app. At its heart, you set up notifications there and it'll send you daily affirmations. And you can set it up for once a day, once an hour, however you want to do it. But it also has the ability to where you can create your own affirmations. You can use the slides that they have set up. It has all different kinds of beautiful backgrounds but then you supply your own content. You can even bring in your own photographs and use your own photographs. So I started using that for my breath prayers. I started creating sets of 10 breath prayers to use on Instagram, for a carousel on Instagram. And that really was something that helped me work through. It was kind of journaling in a way.
Yeah, because you're engaging and you're creating, and then you're also doing the affirmations all in one. So that's awesome.
And you're reflecting, and it just would be whatever was on my heart that day. You know, like one day it might be surrender, you know, and I would just go through surrender self-loathing, surrender past mistakes, that kind of thing. And then another day might be celebrate. It's a beach day, you know, I mean, that's my happy place, that kind of thing. So that was really huge for me. And I'm just sharing these things to give people food for thought, things that, hey, if this speaks to you, it's simple, it's easy, anybody can do it. And it really can add so much to your enjoyment of life. And then, of course, scripture reading. And that's been very powerful. Pastor Lisa, her biggest spiritual gift she'll share with you is teaching. And she is definitely a teacher because she has all these tools set up for you. And so for scripture reading, she had it was 5-day-a-week scripture plan. And it's set up with Old and New Testament verses. And it allows, it's 5 days a week. It gives you 2 days a week to give you some leeway, you know. That's very, very comforting. I know that's not everybody's cup of tea, but for me,
scripture reading helped me a lot. I mean, the program I completed actually was faith-based, but you know, just reading scriptures, reading different kind of books about like hard times and purpose and blessings and coming through the darkness, but spiritual books, you know, and I never did that before. Yes. So this time when I gained my faith back, that really helped with my recovery a lot.
Yes.
God is good.
God is very good.
Yeah.
You know, and I kind of put it that once I quit drinking and regained my sanity, you know, I never would have said that before, that I lost my sanity, but I had, you know, I mean, alcohol was in control, no doubt about it. And my life was unmanageable. I just couldn't. My husband actually thought I had early onset dementia.
Oh, wow.
It was,
but it was the alcohol affecting your.
It was. I joke now that it was early onset happy hour is what it was, you know. Yeah. I mean, when you start drinking, when your feet hit the floor, you're not going to make a lot of sense by the end of the day. So,
right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, and people will say, I can't believe that was you. I can't believe it was me either.
Right.
But it was.
Did your husband ever think that you had a problem? Like, did he call you out, or he just loves you and just thought, hey, she's drinking her wine, doing her own thing?
Yes, yes, that's exactly how it went. He really didn't call me out, you know, which I guess was a blessing, maybe not. But anyway, that's what it was. And he's always been there for me. But that's in discovering the alcohol-free community is I really learned the value of having that community, that connection with people who get you.
Yeah.
Because yes, my husband loves me, but he doesn't get that part because he doesn't have it in himself.
Yeah.
And you know, he would say things like, well, you know, why don't you just have one glass of wine with dinner? Yeah. You know, I have a glass of wine, I'm fine. I'm like, well, okay, fine, I'll drink the whole bottle now. I mean,
right. It wasn't just one glass.
Yes. Yeah. Well, unless the glass was bottle size, you know.
Right. Sober community is so important because we're surrounded by people who understand us, who are going through similar things. And, you know, that relation, it just speaks to us on a whole different level than like a normal person. You know, they just don't understand unless they've been through it.
Exactly. And so, yes, exactly. And so you feel like you can share. You feel like it is a safe place and no one is judging you. I mean, like, people are going, you know?
Right. Like, I've been there, done that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. I think it's necessary. I think it's
Yeah.
essential to have that
Yeah.
connection, whatever it may be. It could
Mhm.
be 12-step meetings, it could be through your church family, it could
Yeah.
be, for me, it was Instagram.
Yeah.
But yes, it's vital.
Peer support is so important. And last night I was on a live with Sober Girl podcast, and we were talking about how addiction is seen as a disease, and how at one point we talked about how peer support is so important, and they use that method in any type of situation, whether cancer or heart disease or anything else. There's so many different types of groups out there for anything that someone is hailing from, but it's
Yes,
so crucial to surround yourself by people who are going through it.
it really is. And it's important, I think, to maybe not everybody, but to have some professional assistance along the way.
Yeah. Hmm.
I've talked about Pastor Lisa. She ended up referring me to therapist Lisa.
Hmm.
I just thought that was so funny. Pastor Lisa is Mother Earth. You
Hmm.
just feel like she's gonna
Yeah.
embrace you, and nothing you could ever do would be wrong. She's going to love you. Therapist Lisa
Hmm.
is very straightforward and a straight shooter. She's going to give it to you,
Yeah. Yep.
and so that was important for me. It exposed the hard truths. I mean, she
Yeah.
called a spade a spade. I'll
Hmm.
never forget the day I was talking about some issues with my daughter, and therapist Lisa just came out and says, well, sometimes children of alcoholics, blah, blah, blah.
Hmm.
She was talking, the child of the alcoholic was my daughter, and the
Hmm.
alcoholic was me.
Yeah.
And I've never,
You
that,
didn't, did you not,
that,
at that moment, did you not think of yourself as an alcoholic?
no, I really never embraced that term.
Hmm.
But when she said it, it was like, yeah,
Yeah.
you're right. That's the truth. But it was a bitter pill to swallow. It really
Yeah.
was. But it's important to have somebody in your life who cares about you enough who can say those hard truths to you.
Yeah. And it's so
And
important. I went through a similar type of therapy session with
did
a counselor like that, and she was pretty straightforward with everything. And it gave me a different perspective to look at myself and what I was dealing with and going through. And I sat there and I had to think for myself, and I had to turn the situation around almost, if
you?
that makes sense, and then be like,
Exactly.
wow, okay, like I see where I went wrong here, and how do we fix that?
Yes.
Instead of blaming others and putting everything off from my shoulders onto other
Yes.
people's. Yeah.
I think that's real common.
Yeah. And sometimes we just have to hear the truth, even when it hurts. It's so important
Exactly.
because.
It really is. She also is very practical. And so things like one session, she goes, well, what's your relapse plan? And I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, relapse plan?
Hmm.
Should I have one? Do we need one? And she goes, uh-huh.
Yeah.
So we talked about that, and she would always end with an assignment. And so the assignment that day was to make a list of affirmations or things we're grateful for, cut them all up,
Hmm.
put them in a box, put the box where our wine glasses are, because wine is my drink of choice.
Hmm.
I mean, I would drink anything, don't get me wrong, but
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I did that. Just the process of going through and making a list of affirmations, that was wonderful, powerful, things you're grateful for. But also the reassurance of, okay, now I do have a plan. I have thought about it. It's maybe not a whole plan, but it's more than I had before.
Right.
And I'm happy to say, I've never had to resort to that. In fact, about a week ago, I was going over, I don't know, getting something out of the bar. There the box was, and I just smiled to myself. And it's like, oh, I see you. You're still
Yeah.
there. That's good. Don't go anywhere, just in
Yeah.
case. Yep. So that was one thing she did. Another thing she did was she had me list everyone I could think of who loves and supports me. I did that, and you're sitting there nodding, and yeah,
Yeah.
that was beautiful. Really, when it was all said and done, I was like, oh my gosh.
Did you find out there was way more people on the list than you originally thought? because I feel
Yeah,
like sometimes in our addictions, we think we're alone and we isolate, and that somehow shifts our reality into thinking that that's real, but it's not. We have so many people in our lives that support us, that love us.
absolutely. And you hit on something really powerful there
Yeah.
is yes, at my worst. I had withdrawn into myself. I had isolated myself. I mean, I like if I was going to check the mail and I saw the neighbor was outside, I wouldn't go check the mail because I didn't want to have to
Yeah.
interact, you know? I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
I've been
And
there. You just want to hide, but it's the
yes,
alcohol. It's like it changes you in every
yes, it,
way.
yes, it. So I made that list, and yes, the first
Yeah.
thing, it was again beautiful making it, and I was really touched at how long the list was. I wouldn't have thought that. And so the next week, and we met again, she's like, "Did you make your list?" Yeah. And did you put your name on it? And I'm like, "No." And she says, "Put your name on it.
Hmm.
Your name needs to be at the top of the list
Yep.
because, yeah,
Put yourself first.
put
It's
yourself
not it's
first.
not a selfish act. It's very important actually.
It is, and I liken it to when you're on an airplane and they tell you, in the case of an emergency, you put your
Yeah.
oxygen mask on first,
Yeah.
so then you can help others. And it's kind of the same thing here, People also liken it to filling up your cup. You can't pour from an empty cup.
But what's important also is you have to love yourself first before you can love others, and accept yourself first before you can accept others. It's so important.
It is, and it's not easy, Krista.
It's
I mean,
not. If
yes.
you hated yourself for whatever reason, for whatever it is, and that might be a reason why you started drinking, then it's so
Mhm.
hard to come back to love yourself because you viewed yourself in such a way for such a long time, and you're like, wow, like I don't deserve anything. I'm not worth it. And these lies, it's the enemy, attacking us.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we're so much more.
And that's, yeah, I could get into that's a whole nother thing.
Yeah.
Thoughts in our head.
Hmm.
But the self-love part,
Hmm.
it's a beautiful thing. It's instrumental, but it's so hard. It takes a
Yeah.
lot of work. And, I'm not going to sugarcoat that. It took a
Right.
long time. And part of that self-forgiveness.
Yeah.
And yeah, what I've learned on that is it's not a one and done thing.
Hmm.
It's not like, okay, I'll make a list of everything I need to forgive myself for. You go down that list and you think, oh, I'm done. And no, lo and behold, now that you've forgiven those things, these other things kind of bubble up that
Mm.
were underneath. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Oh yeah.
And
There's so many different layers to to what we have inside of us.
yes,
Yeah. But
so
also with forgiving, it's also freeing as well.
it
Yeah.
absolutely is. And freedom is kind of my big word at the moment.
Yeah, I love that.
And
Freedom.
that, yeah, freedom.
Yeah.
Because once you start letting things go, and that's another big piece. There's so many pieces,
Yeah.
but that's another big piece is letting things go. And one of the things I had to let go was self-loathing. But once you start doing that, you do become free, and you start knowing your true self, if that makes
It
sense.
does, yeah, because we all have a true self. I think we're not comfortable maybe with accepting our true selves, so that's why we escape, we hide, and
I've heard it put that it's an imposter self. It's a mask
yes, yes,
on
yes.
to present to the world
Hmm.
and to ourselves even, really.
Hmm.
So
And in
it's
a
not.
way, that was so hard during the pandemic because, again, we had
Mhm.
to put masks on, but we're already like isolated and we're already hiding ourselves, and now we have to do it in like the open. And I feel like that was just such a hard year for everybody. A couple of
Oh, yeah.
years, the past few years, a lot
No,
of people had to heal.
a lot of people had to heal, and a lot of people suffered terribly,
Hmm.
struggled terribly with mental health,
Yeah.
still are with alcohol, other addictions.
Hmm.
That points back to isolation is
Yeah.
so damaging to our
Hmm.
spirits and
Yeah.
that connection and coming out. Oh, another thing, and this is the last thing I'm going to touch on with therapist Lisa, is that for the holidays, our oldest daughter, she's the only one with a child, invited us all to her house for Christmas.
Mhm.
And so we all went out there and it was wonderful. And before I went though, Pastor Lisa says, okay, let's talk about this. Pastor, I keep saying therapist
It's
Lisa.
okay.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Therapist Lisa says, let's, kind of walk through this so you'll be prepared. And she said, it could be that you'll find that your family's going to be awkward around you. This is the first time they've been around you and you're not drinking. They may feel judged. They may
Mhm.
feel that you're thinking things about them. And so she says, I recommend just be upfront from the very beginning, listen, y'all know that I quit drinking. I'm on a journey to build a beautiful alcohol-free life, but I want y'all to live your life
Right.
however you want to live it, and go ahead. If you want to drink with dinner, that's fine. It's not going to bother me. I've been fortunate in that way. It doesn't bother me
Mhm.
for somebody else to be drinking. I think
Yeah.
because once I got to that I'm done thing,
Yeah.
when I got that
Mhm.
text, I was done. I was smart enough to know that I couldn't just count on that I'm done feeling to carry me
Yeah.
through long term.
Mhm.
Because, I've done dry January before. I've done, like with dry January, the whole time I'm
You're
feeling
waiting for
deprived.
February,
Yes, exactly.
counting down the days.
Exactly. I was miserable. I felt deprived. I had so many cravings, and that just really didn't happen this time.
Yeah.
I've heard it called,
And you were ready this time?
I was ready this time.
Yeah.
I was ready this time.
Big
Uh,
part.
c- yes, it is. And like I said, that kick in the butt, the text from my daughter. And you know what? I didn't even remember. I did not even know we had a FaceTime. When I got the
Wow.
text, I looked at my phone. It's like, oh my God, we had a FaceTime for 40 minutes or whatever. And
Wow.
I had no recollection. Yeah. Ugh. So anyway, therapist Lisa said, just sit down with everybody, be upfront. Be upfront that there may be a time while we're together that I will excuse myself. And that actually did happen. One night we were around the table playing games and all that. Everybody else was drinking. My husband wasn't because he had quit drinking by that time as well. And honestly, Krista, what got to me was the mirror, the mirror of seeing,
Mhm.
oh, this was me.
Yeah.
This was me being sloppy. This was me being
Okay. Like
loud.
drunk, loud, yeah.
Yeah, this
Mhm.
was me. And I did. I had to excuse myself,
Mhm.
step
And
away.
that's okay. Yeah.
And that's okay. It is okay.
Mhm.
But see, I'm so glad that therapist Lisa had prepared me.
Yeah. Yeah,
So I didn't.
you were walking into a situation that could have ended badly or
Yeah,
relapsing,
yeah,
like not everybody in their first year of recovery are strong enough to even be around alcohol, So
right.
you have
And
to set boundaries and put things in place for you to be safe.
yes, exactly, exactly. And that's where, going back to, I think it is really
Mhm.
important to find
Mhm.
someone, whether it be a therapist or counselor or whatever, somebody
Mhm.
that has the professional experience
Oh, right,
that,
yes. Mhm.
yes, and that can really guide you and prepare you and all of that.
Mhm.
So that was really great.
Mhm.
Um,
And your family supports you in your decisions and everything. And did your husband quit because you're sober, so he kind of wanted to be in it with you?
that's yes, but it's funny because he didn't announce it or anything,
Oh.
and he was your literal social drinker. He'd
Mhm.
have a drink if we went out to dinner. He'd have a drink if we had friends over. But I mean, the take it or
Mhm.
leave it. But what happened was, after we got home from our trip, all of a sudden it's like, because he would have a glass of wine with dinner at home every now and then. It's
Mhm.
like, I haven't seen you drink any wine here lately. He says, no, it's been over a month. I was like,
Wow.
oh, okay. And he's like, yeah, I've seen what it's done for you. Uh,
Yeah.
and I could care less. I could take it or leave it. So let's let it go. So
Yeah. That's
that's
awesome.
Isn't that
Like
awesome?
you kind of influenced him in a way, and that's amazing.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Yeah.
Well, and part of that influence was back to the alcohol experiment. I'll come back to that for a
Hmm.
moment. Besides the book, it's called the Alcohol Experiment Journal.
Hmm.
Highly recommend it for everybody, whether you're new, whether you've been on this journey a long time, because there is so much good content in it. Scientific fact, research
Hmm.
studies. It doesn't have the studies in there because who wants to read all of those?
Yeah.
But it pulls in the conclusions and uses it to
Mhm.
help educate you. And also it helps you examine your beliefs. Um, and that's a whole nother thing is the beliefs that we carry about alcohol that we don't even know because we're conditioned honestly even before we're born.
Yeah.
If our mom's drinking when we're and you know about but if our mom's
Yeah.
drinking when we're in the womb, we're already getting that alcohol. We're already getting that this is a part of life. This you need alcohol to have a full
Yeah.
happy life. And then all the messages that we get from media and everywhere else, you need alcohol to
Yeah.
celebrate. You
Right.
need, you know,
And it bugs me because there's never an aftermath to that side. It's
yeah,
always celebrities or influencers or people like, drink, it's good, blah, blah, but you don't see the car crashes, you don't see the hospital, you don't see the jail, you don't see the destruction that it causes. And it's a drug, the number one drug in the world that's dangerous, you know?
it
It's
is.
our addiction is definitely genetic, definitely biological and environmental and spiritual. It hits upon everything.
You're absolutely right, Krista.
Hmm.
There's so many pieces to it. Well, that kind of segues into just the last couple of days. I've really started to talk on my Instagram a lot about AUD, alcohol
Hmm.
use disorder. And that's something I'd never heard of before. Alcohol use disorder, AUD, is a medical condition characterized by an impaired ability to stop or control alcohol use despite adverse social, occupational, or health consequences. It encompasses the conditions that some people refer to as alcohol abuse, alcohol dependence, alcohol addiction, and the colloquial term alcoholism. Considered a brain disorder, AUD can be mild, moderate, or severe.
Hmm.
And so I highly recommend that your listeners check that out.
Oh
Just
yeah, definitely.
alcohol use disorder, or go to my Instagram, the Sober Grandma Road Trip. What I really like about it and what spoke
Hmm.
to me is they've got what's called audit, AUDIT, and it's a 10-question screening device.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So it asks you these 10 questions, and that helps put you on the spectrum.
Oh, okay.
So there's a whole spectrum. And lo and behold, when I took it, when I first learned about it early in my sobriety and used the information based on just before I quit drinking, I was a 10. I was maxed out.
Mm.
That's,
Yeah.
but what it allows you to do and what helped me is number one, I did have a problem taking on the label alcoholic.
Yeah.
Like it says here, that's a colloquial term
Hmm.
for this whole spectrum of issues related to our relationship to alcohol. So that was number one. Number two, it gave me the opportunity of, oh, I don't have to wait to hit rock bottom to do something about it. I can do something right now. I can do anytime anyone feels like, maybe alcohol, maybe it's taken too large a piece of my life. Maybe it's become an issue in my life. Maybe it's time I took a look at it. Well, it gives you the opportunity to do that. And also, once I just, like I said, the past few days, I've really started talking about it.
Hmm.
Someone pointed out, yes, and it's a good thing too, if alcoholic is put in your medical record, it's in there forever and
Oh.
it can affect future, I won't say treatment, it's not going to affect treatment, but
No.
opinions maybe that people might have about you.
Yeah.
Whereas
Hopefully,
alcohol,
though, in the sense that they can help you, not judge you, right?
right? on the alcohol use disorder, because it's a spectrum, it
Mhm.
changes over time. So it's going to be
Yeah.
fluid with your relationship. Because if I took that test today, I get a 0. I got 100
Yeah.
before on
Yeah.
yesterday. Now I'd get a
Yeah.
0, and it's been a 0 for going on 10 months. I think that's holding a
Mhm.
lot of people back from seeking help, alcoholic label, and I think it may apply more to my
Yeah.
generation.
This reminds me so much of when I started doing programs and thinking like the first time that I had a problem, but I wasn't ready to admit it because I didn't think I had a problem. I didn't think I was an alcoholic, but I was. And that was
Mm,
so long ago, but this is what it's bringing up for me right now talking with you about this because I was in denial. And I think the labels are very hard for some people to accept. Like
yeah,
alcoholic, like you have a problem, but because it's accepted, because it's legal, I think that nobody wants to be like, well, I have a problem because we have that excuse. We can be like, well, it's legal. It's not like I'm doing drugs. It's not like,
yeah,
yeah.
exactly. And that's going back to my generation. I really don't know your generation that much, but an
Mhm.
alcoholic was someone who was down and out and on the street. So I wasn't down and out and on the street, so I must not
Right.
be an alcoholic. And if I'm not an alcoholic, I must not have a problem with alcohol. And if I don't have a problem with alcohol, I must not need help, right?
Mhm.
I mean, so
Right.
that really kept me stuck for a lot
Mhm.
longer than I should have.
Yeah.
Just that stigma and not
Mhm.
wanting. So to have another
Yeah.
that allowed me
Mhm.
access to
Mhm.
admit that I did have a problem, that
Mhm.
alcohol had taken over my life.
My excuse was, well, everybody else is doing it, but everyone else can do something and they might not have the same issues I have with alcohol, with drinking, with drugs,
Right.
right? Like some of my friends, would be okay come Monday after a weekend of binge drinking. And, for me, like it stays with me. I want more and more and more.
Yes.
And that's where it's just so tricky because everybody is different and, recovery is different. And then our addictions don't discriminate, though. That's the bottom line because
Not discriminate.
happens to everybody. Like, and who says if we didn't continue on with what we were doing, we wouldn't end up homeless?
Exactly. And I'm glad you hit on that about not discriminating. And that's why I am really upfront that
Mhm.
I'm a 68-year-old church going grandma. Because it can be anybody. It could be your mom. It could be your grandma. It could be, your preacher, your next door neighbor. You don't
Yeah.
know. You don't know. And so it's important to get the word out that, hey, it's okay. It happened to me. I couldn't believe it. If it happened to
Mhm.
me, I know it's happening to
Right.
lots of people. And I know they're suffering. And if I can help by sharing my
Yeah.
story, if I can help by being open about what's happened, and especially what's happened since then. I don't want to be all Pollyanna that it's all sunshine and rainbows. Life has
Mhm.
problems. Life
Yeah.
always has problems. When you've got your sanity back,
Mhm.
you're
It is
better
sunshine
equipped.
and rainbows. It is sunshine and rainbows. Yeah. You couldn't see that before. We were in the dark, and you come into such a beautiful light, and it's so amazing.
It
It's when you
really
attain that. It's like
it's
you are
beautiful, isn't it?
reborn,
Yes,
and yeah, it's doable. We can all
it is.
recover. We can all get there.
It is doable. And I've talked about the alcohol experiment, and now I've
Yeah.
joined their program called The Path, and it includes coaches that are available
Mhm.
every day with live half an hour question and answer. That's done. It's called Workplace, which is a product of Facebook. So it works just like Facebook, so you can chat.
Is this a free thing or
No,
a
mm-mm.
group that you sign up for and then you can receive like the coaching through that?
Yes,
Cool.
yeah. And then it has daily, beside the half hour Q&A chats, it has an hour on Zoom. So this is live group therapy. This is
Okay.
raw and oh my. gosh, Krista, yes. That's a 1-year program. And I joined even though I was alcohol free, but it's 3 months are set up to deal with becoming alcohol free. Okay.
Okay.
The rest of the 9 months is really all about life coaching. It's all about growing,
Okay.
you know, spiritually, personally, and covering. Like yesterday, we were talking about, which I had heard the term before, but I really don't know much about it. But shadow work. Are
Mm.
you familiar with that term? Yeah.
Yeah.
So all of that's included in this
Mhm.
1-year program.
Cool.
So the yeah, I never thought that I would want to do
Mhm.
group therapy. I thought, it is so powerful, and everyone is just so loving and supportive. And again, we all get each other,
Yeah.
so there's no judgment. There's a lot of the
The
and
understanding
we
each
understand.
other in
Yeah.
relation again. Yeah.
We talked about counseling through the church, and I talked
Mhm.
about therapy. I'd never really thought about doing life coaching before.
Mhm.
But- And what I've learned is, therapy had a lot to do with looking backwards and figuring out how you got to where you are, where coaching is moving forwards and giving you
Mm.
the
Yeah.
tools and the skill sets that you need to be your very best version of yourself. That's really what it's all about. And I'm really, really enjoying that. I've come
Mm.
so far, and I'm so excited to see what comes next, and I'm ready to go further. So it's exciting.
That's amazing. Yeah, it's so exciting. And you sound like you're in a good place too. You can
I am in.
hear it in people's voices, and there's
Oh,
happiness.
I am. I really am. I'm in such a good place, and I want that. I want that for everybody. I want
Yeah.
people to, be able to break loose of the chains of addiction. I want people to be able to come out of the darkness because I've been there and I know what it's like, and it sucks.
Yeah.
It
It
sucks big time.
does. It does.
I was honestly at the point that I didn't want to go on anymore.
Yeah.
It,
I
it was
hear
so
you.
it was so painful, and
Mhm.
nothing changed from day to day. It was
Yeah.
all awful. And so
Mhm.
it's like, I'm done. I'm ready to
Yeah.
go. And I
Mhm.
would say that to my husband.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't really realize, but he's brought it up.
Yeah.
He's
And alcohol just definitely, like, I mean, I have depression anyway, but it makes it worse.
Yes,
It just drags you down. And you're right, like that pain, I don't wish that upon anybody. And, I hope everybody can break the chains of addiction too, because it is just so soul sucking and it's sad and life is beautiful.
it is.
And we all have a purpose. We all have a purpose on this planet, and we are worth it, and we all deserve that love,
Yes.
the
And you can't
light.
say
Yeah.
that enough because I didn't feel that way. I didn't feel worth.
Right. Right. Me neither. My whole
Yeah.
life. That was a huge part of why I escaped at age 12, and then got
Mm.
sober at 28, 3 years ago. So it took a while, but when you find your purpose and your true self and your true worth, and you start healing and do all this work, life brings you blessings like a baby and a fiance
It
and
does.
happiness and everything that you didn't think you could attain. So,
Yeah. 3 years ago, you never could have
no,
even dreamed this, could you?
right. No.
Yeah. It's so good. It's so good. And it's planting seeds in the soil, tending it, watering it, putting it where the sun shines, and then, the new life will grow and all that
Yeah.
versus flipping a switch. If you
Mm-hmm.
think you can just flip a
It's not
switch,
that easy.
no, 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 no. And I think that maybe trips a lot of us up. Because
Yeah.
when I did those dry Januaries, I thought, okay, I did it a month. I went a month. I could go a month without alcohol. I'm okay.
Hmm.
Because I
I
was
feel
like,
like that almost sets you up for failure sometimes.
yes,
No offense, because I know some people like to do dry January to cut back. That wouldn't work for me.
yep.
I couldn't.
Yeah, it's interesting though. Great Britain, UK, dry January is a national undertaking.
Oh, okay.
It's a big, big thing, and so they've done a lot of studies on that, and they found
Wow.
out people really do not necessarily stop drinking, but cut way back on their drinking after participating in dry January. But I'm,
Wow.
you know, once dry January is over, here's February 1, and where's my bottle of
Yeah.
red wine?
Mhm. I see
So,
that pattern in so many instances in my life. And one example is I had to be on a breathalyzer because I drank too much and I was on probation. But after that 8 months, I went back to drinking. That didn't stop me. That's how sick and insanity that was, the alcohol addiction was.
what do you think really turned the page for you, if you don't mind my asking?
Um, so my drinking, my rock bottom was me waking up in a hospital bed 3 years ago, and I had an out of body experience while I was in the hospital room. And so when I came to, I was kind of floating above myself, and I was looking at myself from up above, and I heard a voice, a whisper or something, and it just said, "It's not your time." And I was like, okay, like what's happening? Am I dreaming? Whatever. And then, I got pushed back into my body, and then I woke up for real. And I looked around the room and I was like, wow, like like I don't know what that experience I just experienced was, but I heard something that I needed to hear, and whomever that voice was, whether it was God or someone in a past life or whatever, who passed away, um, that was enough to kind of scare me a little bit, I guess.
Okay.
But a good fear, because that was enough for me to go to detox and then to do longer treatment, to change, to become sober finally. And it took a long time, but that was my wake up call that if that didn't happen, to be honest, I don't think I would have stopped. And who knows
Mhm.
what have happened. It would have ended badly if I kept drinking. I think I would have progressed to something more stronger because in the end, alcohol wasn't doing it for me anymore, and I was not happy.
I kind of feel apologetic to say, my rock bottom was getting a text from my daughter that I was slurring on a
No,
FaceTime.
because no,
But
that's your moment though, because that
yeah,
hit you in such a place where you're like, wow, like, I need to change because of that. And that anyone's aha moment or spiritual
yes.
awakening, whatever it may be, it's different. And if that was enough for you to become sober, like that's amazing. It doesn't have to be so drastic or bad.
And I think that's important for people to know too.
Yeah,
And like
definitely.
pointed out so many times, we're all different. We're
Hmm.
all different. Yeah, but
Yeah.
it's a beautiful thing. I'm glad.
Yeah.
I'm glad to be moving forward. I'm glad to meet beautiful people like
Yeah.
you who are doing such a wonderful job getting the message out. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. It's how we do it, right? We cover out loud.
That's right.
Yeah. I love what
You
you
know,
do
I've got
too.
oh, thank you. And I've got a story about that because when I first started doing Instagram, and that I felt was kind of like over here. I've got the sober
Mhm.
community, the alcohol-free community over here, and that doesn't relate to my real personal life. And so my Facebook's over here, right? And I'm just continuing on my real personal life over here, not sharing anything about the
Mhm.
alcohol-free. In the alcohol experiment, you can post in the private Facebook group they had there,
Okay.
and that. And I accidentally posted in my personal account. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Something, I think it was my like 3 month free, I'm pretty sure 3 month free,
Yeah.
alcohol free. And I got such an outpouring of love and support.
Mhm.
And that was the light bulb going on of no, be open, be loud and proud, share what you're doing. What you're doing is an amazing thing. What you're doing is a beautiful thing. Share it. And so from then on, it's been loud and proud.
Yeah.
I've had people at church say, well, I never would have thought that you had a problem, and you're so open about sharing it. I go, it's the truth.
Mhm.
It's yeah.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
and that's, I guess, letting go of the shame, because that was a big part of
Oh
it too.
yeah. Definitely.
Gosh. Yeah, that's a whole nother journey right
I
there.
know. Yeah, there's so many different journeys inside the journey,
There
right?
are.
It's so true. I remember I couldn't even share my story in AA or NA or anywhere I went. Like, I was so embarrassed, so ashamed of my
Yeah.
past. And it took me a while to be able to open up to Recover Out Loud. And then I started my podcast. And I've met so many amazing people through that. And I'm able to be loud and be open with things. That helps me so much too. And I didn't realize it would turn out this big. And I'm so happy. Like, I have people like you come on. It's just been a really amazing season for my podcast. And the whole recovery scene online is just so amazing. I'm glad I found that because I never would have thought online.
I know.
Yeah.
And
It's
everybody,
easier than in person for a lot of people.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, I think that's a good point. And everybody is so supportive.
I love your journey. I love your story. I love how you recover out loud.
Oh,
It's
thank
been
you,
an
dear.
honor to talk to you and for you to
I
come
so
on and share
appreciate
your
you inviting
story.
me.
Yeah, of course. Is there anything else you'd like to say to someone who's struggling?
Connect,
Hmm.
you're not
Yeah.
alone. You're not alone. There's so many other people out there that understand you. They'll see you. They'll hear you, which will help you
Yeah.
heal you.
Yeah.
And the other word is also a C word, curiosity.
Mm.
Um, instead of looking at what's happening in your life with shame and embarrassment, look at it with curiosity. Start asking yourself questions. Start asking yourself, where do I feel that feeling in my body? And what am I feeling? And where does that come from? And what is it trying to tell me? And start being curious and start looking for answers. Because the more you look for the answers, you'll find them. And once you find them, you'll know. You'll find your purpose. You'll know which way to go. And once you know which way to go, you just have to keep putting one foot in front of the other.
Yeah. For sure. Take it one day at a time. That's all we can
Yep.
do.
Yep.
Thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, thank
It was an
you.
honor.
And good luck with your new baby.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, thank you so much.
Welcome.
Yeah, keep everyone updated on the gram.
Yep, yep. Well, I wish you just, problem-free delivery, a
Yeah,
beautiful baby girl.
thank you. Yeah.